Hello everyone, this is Pooka and welcome to another edition of Building on a Budget, where we give cheap, inexpensive decks to new players trying to get into competitive play. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a fairly interesting deck that I feel is fairly strong and extremely fun, and that's going to revolve around Lucario, Cofagrigus, and Milotic. So let's try to make this quick. We'll use Lucario. This is our main attacker, our only real attacker of the deck. It has Hurricane Kick, does 60 plus 30 damage for each prize card your opponent has taken. It takes 1 fighting, 2 colorless energy, so we can power this up in 2 attachments with a fighting energy and a double colorless energy. We have 4 of these double colorless energy, 6 fighting energy, so in 2 attachments we can power up this Lucario. This doesn't seem like it does much. But when we knock out our own Pokemon with Cofagrigus and Milotic, it starts to add up very quickly. So we have a 4-4 Lucario line. For the Riolu, I don't think it really matters which one you use. I have 2 of these with Punch, 2 of these with Kick. I just use the ones with 70 HP, it doesn't really matter. You don't really attack with these too often. But let's take a look at the other Pokemon in the deck. Cofagrigus has the ability 6 feet under. It can knock itself out and then put 3 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon any way you like. So the point here is to purposely give up prize cards early on so that we do more damage with Hurricane Kick. Now we're also placing damage on the opponent's field. So we're going to just be doing explosive amounts of damage very quickly while putting tons of pressure on the opponent. And even though we are giving up prizes early on, that's fine because we're going to be doing so much damage. We're going to be just catching our opponent off guard before they can really set up. So we have a 4-4 line of Cofagrigus. I like this Yamask that has Astonish just in case, attacks for 10. If you flip heads, you can take a card out of your opponent's hand at random and shuffle it back in. And then our final Pokemon for the deck is Milotic, Energy Grace. You can knock out this Pokemon and then take 3 basic energy from your discard pile and attach them to one of your Pokemon. So if we fall behind on some energy attachments at some point, we can also knock out Milotic, which also adds damage to Hurricane Kick while powering up Lucario. So there's a lot of synergy here between these Pokemon, knocking themselves out and allowing Lucario to do more damage with Hurricane Kick. We also have 2 Phoebus as well. You don't really want to attack with him. Surprise attack is awful. Our other Pokemon are Mr. Mime and has Bench Barrier. Prevent all damage done to your bench Pokemon by attacks. This is mainly just to stop things from knocking out your Phoebus before it can evolve into Milotic, since it only has 30 HP. And it's also nice to block bench damage sometimes. And then we have 1 Jirachi EX as well. Stellar Guidance allows you to search for a supporter card and put it into your hand. This is a very good consistency card because we have lots of ways to search for this Pokemon, and it can turn right into a supporter card. So it's very neat. Those are the Pokemon for the deck. Our supporters are actually very simple. We have 4 Professor Sycamore. Discard your hand and draw 7 cards. 4 N. This is going to be one of the strongest cards in this deck. So you both shuffle in and then draw for each prize card you have. So if we knock out a lot of our Pokemon early on, our opponent's going to be at maybe like 4 or 5 prize cards, and we can play an N to put our opponent down to 4 or 5 cards very early on in the game, which can be very disruptive. And then as time goes on, they'll knock out more things, and we'll be able to keep putting them down to lower and lower hand sizes, all while taking big knockouts with Lucario, and eventually our opponent should probably just not draw very much, and we'll win. So N is probably the most important card in this deck because we're knocking ourselves out. We need some way to cope with that, and N is going to be that way. 3 Random Receiver just reveals cards until we find a supporter, and the 3 Bicycle is just an item card that allows us to draw until we have 4 cards in our hand. So the idea here is our game probably isn't going to take very long. We're going to be knocking ourselves out, and basically our opponent only has to knock out 3 or 4 Pokemon in a game probably. And if that's the case, we only need 8 actual supporter cards because, well, the game's probably not even going to last 8 turns most of the time. So we can afford to run this in Random Receiver and Bicycle instead of just more supporter cards. Our ace spec card for the deck is Computer Search. Just allows us to discard 2 cards and search for anything. Very good consistency card. Allows us to really get the ball rolling. And then we have a lot of searching cards. 4 level ball. Search for a Pokemon with 90 HP or less, which is most of this deck. And then 4 Ultra Ball. Discard 2 cards. Search for a Pokemon. And put it into your hand. So this does get every card in our deck. Well, every Pokemon, that is. We also have 1 switch, just in case we need to switch out of the active spot. And then we have a couple Pokemon tools as well to help us out. Silver Bangle does additional 30 damage to Pokemon EX, which allows Lucario's Hurricane Kick to do even more damage to those big Pokemon EX to get quick knockouts. And then we have 2 Silver Mirror to deal with those pesky Team Plasma Pokemon who can really take advantage of our giving up prizes by using Lugia EX's Plasma Gale, which allows them to draw an extra prize card. So we don't want that to happen. We want to really put it to those Team Plasma Pokemon. Otherwise, we may struggle with those kinds of decks. We've already looked at the energy, but I just want to give you an idea of how powerful Hurricane Kick can be. So let's say we start off with this Lucario, and on the second turn, we can get him powered up. We can use Cofagrigus 6 feet under, put 3 damage counters on a Pokemon. Now Hurricane Kick's doing 90 damage. That's 120 because of the 6 feet under damage. And with a Silver Bangle, we're doing 150 already. So if we can knock out 2 Cofagrigus early on and then Hurricane Kick, we can actually knock out an EX on the second turn with Hurricane Kick and the damage from 6 feet under. Or even an Energy Grace. It just all adds up very quickly. And after your opponent has taken 4 prize cards, I mean, that's 180 damage for a Hurricane Kick, and that's knocking out just about everything. So once your opponent starts taking prizes, they actually get punished for it with these big attacks from Hurricane Kick. So this is a very fun, quick deck to use, and you'll be surprised at just how much damage Lucario can do. So let's go ahead and take a look at this deck in action. Got a quick game just to show it off and see the power of Lucario. And I gotta say, this deck is pretty much a hurricane. It's very fast, very powerful, and pretty destructive as well. So we're gonna go first in this game, start off with a couple of Yamask. Get one of those into the active spot. And we'll see if we can get a nice setup here in the early goings. It's very important to get a lot of basic Pokemon onto the field as quickly as possible. Normally you need a lot of basics turn 1, so turn 2 you can evolve a lot of your stuff. So we'll see if we can do that. We're fortunate. We're starting off with a couple of Yamask here. And we have a level ball to search for a Riolu as well. So this should be pretty darn good. I'm going to go ahead and put down the Yamask. Level ball for a Riolu. I'll go ahead and get that one with Kick. Put it into my hand. And go ahead and drop the DC on it as well. Now I have a Bicycle, an N, and a Juniper. And I don't really know if I want to play any of them right now. I have a Cofagrigus in hand. I'm just going to pass the turn because we have a nice set of cards in my hand. I also want to note I am using the full art versions of these cards and the shiny versions of the cards in this video because I played the deck before I realized I could make this into a budget deck. So sorry if you're building this deck hoping for a cheap deck, do not buy the full art versions like I'm using right now. Use the other ones that I used in the first part of the video. Alright, so now my opponent is playing a Skyla. We do see this is a Raybor deck. We have a Tepig and a Fennekin. So Emboar and Delphox are very powerful Pokemon. But we have a pretty good opportunity here to get a jump on my opponent. If we can manage to get 2 Cofagrigus and then 6 feet under both of them, knocking out one of these Pokemon, and then getting a Hurricane Kick as well, we can win on the second turn of the game. And oh my goodness, there is a Cofagrigus and a second Cofagrigus. I'm going to go for the Bicycle. And alright, that's 6 feet under twice. I'm going to go ahead and target down that Tepig first. We'll put 3 damage counters right there. My opponent will get a prize card. That's fine. We like to give prize cards early on in this deck. Well, 6 feet under a second time. I'll get a prize for that one. My opponent will get a second one. And now I have a decision. Do I want to just Juniper, draw 7, go for the Lucario and the Fighting Energy, or just kind of play it safe and end my opponent down to 4 cards. My opponent already says good game, anticipating the turn to knockout with Lucario. We don't have it quite yet, but I think I will just kind of disrupt my opponent, and I still have a chance to draw what I need. And go figure, there's Lucario and a fighting energy, and, well, my opponent predicted it very well. Good game. There's turn 2 Hurricane Kick for 120, and we knocked out a Tepig as well, taking 2 prizes on the second turn, completely eliminating my opponent's field. And that just shows you the power of this Lucario deck, how quick, how swift, how easy it is to win sometimes. You're going to have fun with this kind of a deck. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will certainly have some more for you soon. I am Pooka from the Top Cut, and I'll see you guys next time.